Hey, soccer fans, Nick here for Sons of a Pitch Soccer Central, and I don't know if you're feeling it, but I have got the World Cup fever. I got chills, I got sweats, I got excitement, I got crazy calls happening in the early minutes of every match, and we are going to look at all the calls, the results, and a few notes that I've jotted down for each of the first four World Cup games that have taken place so far. And in the second half of the show, got to remember, it's still the MLS offseason and MLS clubs are making moves. And we're going to talk about a few transfers, a lot going on in the Eastern Conference, especially on the blue side of New York. We're going to touch on all of this tonight, as well as get you a few pictures from some of our fans who are out celebrating the World Cup right after our hype music. Hey, soccer fans, this is Nick again here at Sons of a Pitch Soccer Central, which is becoming World Cup Central for the next about 15-20 minutes or so as we recap the four games that have taken place so far. And we're going to get into it. We're going to keep it short, sweet, to the point because we got to get to bed if we are going to get up for that 4 a.m. Central Time Argentina-Saudi Arabia match, right? But we can't get into it without first thanking all of our viewers, all of our supporters, everyone who has joined our live watch-alongs. We had our most successful day, our most successful single watch-along stream for today's United States men's national team game in the 5-year history of Sons of a Pitch Soccer Central. Thank you to everyone who joined the chat, who clicked the link, who let an ad play, who added comments, like sharing links. Like that is really helping us fulfill our mission of growing the sport through conversation. So thank you to everyone out there on YouTube and everyone who's also subscribing and downloading all of our podcast episodes wherever you get your podcasts, because those metrics are driving us up. And once we get probably another 100 or so downloads a week, I think we can start talking sponsorship and bigger and better packages for everyone of content. Anyway, let's get into it here. The World Cup, it's here. The greatest feat in sports in the world. Like, I can't even talk about it clearly because I was so excited today, and the games did not disappoint. Let me touch on the opening ceremony first, because it went from okay to very strange and awkward really fast, right? I liked their original message. We are many tribes in the desert. We all come together as one tribe for the World Cup. Nice little message there. And then my wife wandered into the room and was like, is that Morgan Freeman? I'm scratching my head. I'm like, it is Morgan Freeman. And there's a montage of all the past songs and all the past mascots are dancing together. And I'm like, did they come up with an original idea here? Like, couldn't they have hired some sort of Broadway producer or Hollywood producer to come up with something more than just rehashing everything from the past? Then again, I guess that is kind of what Hollywood does nowadays, right? Yeah, low-hanging fruit. I hope you like that one. Anyway, that was interesting. And then we kind of saw Morgan Freeman having a conversation with the kid with no legs who's teaching him about what it is to be in Qatar and all of this. It got really weird really fast. I think they really kind of fell on their faces in the second half of that opening ceremony. But also, they tried to have that touching moment of the prince and the king and signing over a jersey from their childhood. But, it's one of those aw, well, that's nice for the billionaires to have their moment. Aw, right? Not anything that's really going to move me as someone watching from across the oceans. But anyway, those are kind of my quick takes on the opening ceremony. But from the opening matches, we got some great content from a good friend of ours here on the show, a new Wiseman, or on Twitter, Indomitable Lion. And I want to feature, he works at an airport. He's got fans pouring in all over the place traveling. And he sent us some great pictures I wanted to share here. There is our guy, a new Wiseman, in the middle with his USA scarf, hooking up with some people here for a photo who have USA gear on from World Cups past. Everyone at the airport getting ready to get to where they need to go to watch the games. We had a contingent of Mexican fans. Telemundo showed up and started interviewing people in the airport here. You can see how happy they are to celebrate Mexico and to be on air. And then, of course, he shows us this great picture of a group of Ecuadorian fans celebrating their first game of the World Cup, the first game of the World Cup, the opening match, where Ecuador really, really controlled that game, and they get a 2-0 victory to open up the cup. And we all know how important those opening match results are, because if you win your first match, you're like over 80%, maybe 84% likely to move on to the knockout round. So I want to thank, again, a new Wiseman, Indomitable Lion, over there on Twitter for sending us these pictures. Thank you so much for thinking of us, for sharing your soccer experience, for your soccer conversations with us and all of our viewers and listeners. We appreciate it. And I also was going back and seeing some old pictures you sent us, a new Wiseman, of you at Stamford Bridge with the SOP shirt. I was there a few weeks back. I didn't have my SOP gear on, and Chelsea was away, and it was incredible to walk around those grounds, man. So I was thinking of you, too, while I was overseas. Thank you. And there he is jumping in the chat. New Wiseman, man, thank you for supporting us, sending us the pictures. Always great to have you in the chat and your reactions on all of our videos here. We also have Connor Knows Soccer jumping in the chat. He's making TikTok videos of reactions to Weah's goal. So make sure you go find Connor Knows Soccer and all of his social media content for more great American soccer content. But we're going to get into the World Cup now. The opening match, Ecuador dominates the game. They defeat Qatar 2-0. And let's bring up the stats here. So as I'm talking about it, you guys can kind of see what went on in the game here, and this is thanks to MLSsoccer.com. Ecuador ended up with only 53% possession, but in the almighty goals category, that's what counts most. Now, a few of my thoughts on this match. Ecuador came ready. They were faster. They were more physical. They had a game plan. Meanwhile, Qatar had really no offense going. If we take a look at the statistics here, right, no shots on goal and only 5 shots on the game. They only had 47% possession, 80% passing accuracy, not good numbers, and the eye test bore that out as well. What I really think, Qatar had their set game plan, their set style and tactics, where they stacked the middle. We saw that when they played here in the Gold Cup last year in the United States. They really wanted to dominate and control the middle of the field. And in a lot of aspects, controlling the midfield will help you control the game. But Ecuador was prepared. And, you know, real quick, this Qatar team has been playing together for years with the same coach. They all came out of the academy. When Qatar got the World Cup bid, this team was put together. These youth players, these academy players were put together. They've been playing together both domestically and abroad for years now. And maybe it worked against them to a certain degree because Ecuador knew their game plan. Ecuador knew they were going to stack the middle. So what did Ecuador do? They played up the wings and used their speed and also played some long balls over the top. Ecuador had the perfect tactical matchup to just bypass half of the Qatar team, and it showed. And what really worries me from a Qatar perspective is they had no adjustments. They didn't change their tactics. They didn't change their formation. They just felt like we need to come out and do what we do just better and defend better. And it did not work for them. If we take a look as we scroll down on the stats here, I want to see some of the possession breakdowns. You can see Ecuador and those most important phases of the game, the bulk of the first half, the opening of the second half, Ecuador was holding possession. They took what Qatar had to throw at them in the second half and managed the game and put it away. So Qatar really needs to adjust how they play, and Ecuador just needs to keep balling out. And Eder Valencia can still do it, folks. He looked good. Had one goal waved off for VAR early on, as well as 2 in the back of the net, including a penalty. So Valencia looking good to start. Now, let's take a look at day 2, the first match from today, from Monday the 21st. England rolls over Iran 6-2. Iran was out matched. They looked shell-shocked. England gets a goal in the 35th minute to open things up, but Iran, I'm going to say both ways. Just sorry about my pronunciation difficulties here. But Iran just never looked like they were in the game. They never looked like they were up for it or that they even believed they could hang with England. Now, a lot of the issue came from early on when their goalie in the 8th minute, I want to say, his own defender was tracking back and not paying attention, and the goalie smashed his face into his defender's head and concussed himself. I think he probably broke a nose, and his nose was bleeding. They did the test. He could not continue. So I think that really kind of put a damper on everything Iran was coming out and trying to do. But even in those first 8 minutes, England already looked like they dominated. Look at these statistics here. 78% possession for England. Almost 800 passes at a 90% passing accuracy rate. These are insanely high numbers. Iran just said, you know what, let's just kind of cut our losses and hopefully we don't lose by too many. And then maybe they go out and try and get results against Wales and the United States, but they look totally uninspired. On the flip side, England may just do this to the rest of the group. They looked really good, and what surprised me is how good the English were on set pieces. That is going to be really tough for the United States, who can't really match up size for size with some of these English players. I think maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're going to be able to outjump them. Who knows? But I think once you look outside of our center backs, I think England might have the advantage in the air. Also, what everyone else has been saying, and I totally agree with it, who's coming off the bench for England? Goal scorer Jack Grealish, goal scorer Marcus Rashford, right? These are bench players for England that are stars in the Premier League. It is extremely difficult for a team like the United States or a team like Wales who doesn't have that depth to match up with England in the second half. And we saw 3 second-half English goals in this game against Iran. So those are kind of the big talking points. This is England's group to lose. You win your opening game with a +4 goal differential. It is now their group to lose, especially considering the draw between Wales and the United States. Now let's talk about the second game. We're going to jump out of Group B for a minute, get back to Group A, where Senegal hosted the Netherlands. I think the Dutch should win the group. After this result, they probably will, depending on their head-to-head matchup. Gosh, I forget what the other favorite team in that group is, but I think the Dutch are going to go on to win this group. They get goals from Gakpo and Davy Klaassen, and me as an Everton fan, I'm like scratching my head because there's 3 goals in the first 3 games of the World Cup that are scored by former Everton players, and Eder Valencia and Davy Klaassen. So take that for what it's worth, club soccer fans there. But Netherlands in this game, they looked shaky to start. They were playing okay. I never felt like Senegal was threatening. And if you look at the possession, Netherlands ended up with 53% of the possession, some decent passing numbers here as well, but they get those 2 late goals. They're disciplined, and I think that is a sign of good coaching as well as mature players, where you're going to come out in the second half like that and late in both halves and really control the game. It's just maturity, it's good coaching, and it shows that Netherlands is locked in, and they're probably going to go far, maybe, but at least win this group, I think. Now, Senegal, it's got to be said, they're missing their best player, Sadio Mane, but one player does not make a team, and Senegal, as good as they've been in Africa and in qualifying over the last year plus or so, they needed a better performance than what they got here against the Netherlands. Yes, they miss Sadio Mane. The one question I'm going to ask for the Netherlands is, do they have that one superstar guy, or that guy who's going to have his superstar moment, or are they going to rely on kind of their team game? In this match, I think they relied more on the team game. If you got a different opinion, please let us know. I didn't get a chance to watch this full game because, I actually did have to do some work today. I was in the office today. I skipped church on Sunday to see the opening match. That's why we have confession. I'll talk to the priest about that one. But I didn't get a chance to watch too much of this Netherlands game. But the fact that their team plays so well together, I think that is going to be one of their biggest assets in the group stage as well as going forward. All right, now got to take a sip of water, clear the throat for this next one because we got a lot to say. United States and Wales. Wow. What can we say about this game? As a soccer fan, it was wild and it was entertaining. As a more analytical minded person, it was that typical tale of two halves kind of performance. The US controlled the first half, if not dominated the first half, and could not get more than a single 36th minute goal from Tim Weah. It was a beautiful counterattack, great run and assist by Pulisic, and Weah with a great little outside of the foot, front foot flick finish past the Welsh goalkeeper. Phenomenal. But they needed more. In that second half, Wales came out, and I thought, just okay, do what Ecuador did to Qatar. Last the first 15 minutes, build some possession back up. Maybe you get that second one, but hold Wales to limited opportunities. And if we scroll all the way down on the stats page here, they don't have the expected goal statistic up. That's probably going to take some time to get. But I would not expect Wales to have too many shots or too many expected goals. They had 3 from inside the box. One was Bale's PK, so you're going to have about a 1 expected goal from that, and then 1 shot from outside the box. So they really limited Wales to very few chances, and it was great. But as the second half went on, instead of getting that rhythm back and reasserting the control over the game, the United States was scrambling defensively, and it was all epitomized in Walker Zimmerman's reckless challenge on Gareth Bale in the box, resulting in the penalty, which he smashed. I mean, Matt Turner read it perfectly, got his hands on it, but it was hit so hard it was not going to get saved and pushed out of the net. That had nothing but goal written all over it. I think Wales had the United States right where they wanted them. Wales studied the U.S. They've played some friendlies against them lately. And you know what? The U.S.'s offensive woes continued. So the Welsh are like, cool. We're down 1 goal to the United States at halftime. This is our game. We're going to come back and take it in the second half. And as people were pointing out online, it's funny that it was all the European players that everybody wanted to see who couldn't generate more than 1 shot on goal. And then it was the second half collapse of the United States, which is the complete opposite of how things were during qualifying. And the United States is going to continue to struggle to break down teams who sit in these low blocks. And we need those moments of magic. Sure, some of the calls didn't go their way. Maybe we should have had some more free kicks in the attacking third. But we need more creativity. We need more combination play. We need more pace from the U.S. players. I don't see them getting those overloads and those numbers forward in dangerous players as Berhalter's system would want, or as just the demands of the game would want. But we saw a lot of good that first half, and I was very optimistic, but without the key passes, the expected goals, good opportunities is what I'm saying. We're going to struggle to find offense, and you cannot rely on your defense against a team like England. If the United States draw England somehow miraculously 1-1, 2-2, God, even 3-3, that would be a great result at this point, and then hopefully you can go beat Iran by 2-3 goals at least. Let's take a few of your comments that we've had in the chat so far, and then I'll give you my last couple comments here right now. We got some good comments from our chat here about Senegal. The New Wiseman says the lack of Sadio Mane diminished their finishing. Absolutely. That is, when you don't have offense, it's only a matter of time before the other team beats you. And we saw that with the United States game. Brother BKL Contreras, welcome to the chat, man. He says, when Senegal became a better team between the first half, but until the second half, the Netherlands turned things around with their possession and 3 shots on target. They needed more goals. Absolutely. Good take, brother BKL. A New Wiseman jumps in again and says, bars all over Atlanta were packed for this one. I think bars all over the country, if not all over the world, were packed for this one, just to see these young American players and how well they were going to handle themselves on the world stage. And they did. They handled themselves really well that first half. They did not look like they were too jittery. There were a few little jitters the first couple 3 minutes there, but it didn't affect their game plan. They were able to possess the ball really well and work the ball around, especially the back line, switching things back and forth. They looked really well that first half, but it was just tactically, maybe not tactically, but they couldn't match the Wales push that second half, and they were scrambling and they never got their footing. So with those comments, oh, and yes, Anu Wiseman, you're absolutely right, man. Did you see Aronson? He was a menace. I love him. I love how he can just harass and just press the crap out of an opposing back line. He's all over the place. The man is pure energy, runs for days. Gosh, I really hope that he has an excellent game against England and is able to keep that pressure up. Maybe he can keep England on their back foot for portions of this game and kind of shut down some of their offense. But now here's kind of my final thoughts, because what is going on in the American soccer psyche right now is that this is all Gregg Berhalter's fault that we tied Wales. It's all his fault that we tied Wales, right? His tactics don't work. His offense doesn't work. He subbed in MLS players. They're terrible. It was the MLS player who committed the penalty. Why is Gio Reyna on the bench when we're putting in Jordan Morris? Okay, great, cool. I'm glad a draw in our opening match of our first World Cup in 8 years, the first World Cup for every single player on this roster, except for DeAndre Yedlin, is an abject failure and a complete referendum on our coach and our player pool. Cool, great, thanks. Real sound reasoning there. But here, let me try and actually put a little rationale, a little reasonable thought into this. The tactics were there. Wales was sitting in a low block, and the United States dominated the first half. Now, maybe Berhalter should have put some subs in earlier in the second half to help the United States kind of regain their footing, break up the flow of the game a little bit. That was turning in favor of Wales. But for one play, U.S. walks out of there with 3 points, 1-0, right? Now, of course, that's the biggest play of the game. Zimmerman's conceding a penalty for his tackle on Bale. But still, you're one play away. But that's the margins in the World Cup, guys. So I'm not making excuses from that sense. The one other thing is that they emphasized the wing play with Weah and Pulisic. Those guys were getting touches early. Dest and Weah were linking up. Jedi's running, doing overlaps with Pulisic on the left. Like, we really emphasized the wing play and getting crosses into Josh Sargent. Now, they didn't get as many crosses in as they would have wanted. Let's take a look at the stats here. Excuse me. Actually, they got 25 crosses in. Now, how many of those were to Sargent when he was in the game versus after being subbed out for Haji Wright late? I don't know. But that was the game plan. The game plan was working. They were not finishing. They were not creating the overloads. The players weren't executing. And to really quick talk about a sub before I get to talk about the players in general, Jordan Morris is better suited as a speedy winger getting behind defenders. Gio Reyna is more suited for taking on defenders one-on-one for dribbling. And the game plan against Wales, which turned out to be a pretty good one, but for finishing, was to get in and behind their defenders on the wings. That's why Morris was put in. That's why we didn't see Reyna come in. Now, am I going to agree with it? Nah, I understand it. I really don't care one way or the other. It would have been nice to get a result. But I'm not going to say that this is an abject failure for Gregg Berhalter because he put in Morris and not Reyna. Anyway, enough of that. When are we going to shift the blame from our coach and his tactics and his MLS quotas to the players not executing? McKennie looked bad out there today. A lot of his passes were backwards and laterally. He did not look to push forward as much. Now, was that purposeful, that he needed to sit back and try to be that person in the middle to defend a Welsh counterattack? Wales wasn't threatening that much in the first half. He needed to get forward. Also, set pieces were atrocious. Christian Pulisic was putting most of his crosses, if not all of his set piece kicks, into the head of the near post defender. I hate playing set pieces to the near post. It does nothing. You're not putting the ball in a dangerous area. You're not able to do the flick on play type of thing. to the level it needs to be done because you're not working on that as players, right? Plus, at this level of defending at the World Cup, I think the defense is a lot better than that. The goalkeeping is a lot better than that. You got to put the ball in the mixer, put it in a dangerous area, or pick out your one or two biggest, most threatening targets during set pieces. Set pieces were terrible. They had 5 corners, and I hope Mike hit the over on his bet, by the way. It was he took the under on the goals and the over on the corners. I hope he hit that bet. But we got to start putting some of the blame onto the players for not executing. Now, let's take a look at some of the stats here before we take our halftime a break here. We got Daniel Young jumping in. Daniel, great to have you back, man. He says Gareth Bale and Wales played very conservative in the first half. In the second half, they smelled weaknesses in the USA offense and went in like a lion. You're absolutely right, Daniel. When they realized that the US could not really break them down or threaten, they were able to send 1 or 2 more players forward and attack and really build and can start to control the game, and that left the U.S. scrambling. Thank God for Tyler Adams. That man, I don't know how many recovery runs he made. I don't have any subscriptions to advanced statistic websites, but that dude must have logged some miles in that game just on the recovery runs. He deserved it, captain. Absolutely. But good comment, Daniel. Brother BKL says, that's why Gregg needs more systems. Seriously, we're acting like 2018. Wow, some strong words there, BKL. I would have liked to see the U.S. try to hit some long balls on the counter, but they were scrambling too much on defense. They could not find their footing. They just were not patient in that second half to try and build some of that possession that helped them out in the first half. A new Wiseman says, just wait for Paxton Aronson when he comes into the senior roster. He's headed to Germany this winter. Yes, you're absolutely right. He is going to Eintracht Frankfurt, got the transfer done from the Philadelphia Union. It'll be great to see him on the senior team whenever he gets up there. Hopefully he can get up there. I think part of the problem is we have such a wide and young player pool that we haven't really established who are the guys. We still got to give some other people some workouts and tries. But hey, I think the roster is just about as good as it was going to get for this World Cup cycle and for this World Cup. Yep, there's always going to be 4 or 5 players you're going to quibble with on a 26-man roster. But you know what? They should have done better in this match. We got Angus McCorder jumping in on the chat. He says the USA were 2 different teams today, the first half team and the second half team. I agree with you 100% on that one, Angus. The U.S., they took the punch from Wales early and didn't concede, but never got back into the game. It was a scramble defensively for them. And a new Wiseman says, Adams is a bully out there. Oh, yeah, he is all over the ball. He is. I like to see him stepping up and not shying away from challenges. Did we need McKennie to be kind of the enforcer, after the whistle was blown, like he's done in so many CONCACAF games? Did we need that from him? Did we need Adams to do that a little bit more? Who's to say? That referee was pulling yellow cards out real quick. We didn't need any red cards or get more people ready for yellow card accumulation suspensions, which, by the way, 2 yellow cards in your group stage gets you a 1-game suspension. I think that's a bogus rule. World Cup and FIFA have to take a look at doing away with that. Maybe 3 yellow cards in 3 games get you a suspension, but not a fan of that, especially when the yellow card calls are now points of emphasis. Breaking up a counterattack, a tackle in from behind. They got to rethink the accumulation suspension rule because there are so many more yellow cards being handed out for so many less dangerous plays, right? And I'll give Daniel Young the final thought on this before we head into halftime here. This game's a huge learning lesson for the USMNT. When you aren't taking advantage of opportunities you have to score, you will be punished. You are absolutely right, Daniel. I think that is the perfect summary to put a bow on this. Even Brother BKL says facts. Daniel, and thank you. So with that, we are going to jump into our halftime break, everybody. You're going to hear a word from our sponsor if you're listening on the podcast side of things. If you are on YouTube, we'll be back in about 30 seconds. We'll pop up our sponsor graphic, and we're going to talk MLS transfers. I am emphasizing the MLS because I am excited to discuss a little bit more, especially what we got going on in New York City. We'll be back after a short break. Stay tuned. All right, soccer fans, we are back after our halftime break. We are moving on from World Cup for now and getting back to our bread and butter, to Major League Soccer here, to MLS. We have a lot of transfer news to cover, so let's dive right in. After a quick thank you to John Donovan, to Skira Icelandic Spring Water. Guys, wintertime, things are drying out. Get to your 7-Eleven, get some of that spring water to help soothe those vocal cords, especially from all the yelling we've been doing at the TV this week so far. Also, want to remind everyone, please make sure if you like what we're doing, if you want to support the show, send us a super chat or super thanks via YouTube. Click an ad, let the ads run if you're watching after the fact. It throws a few pennies into our account from the Google algorithm and metrics there. And also, a little extra feature here for you, just so you get a little more bang for your buck here. If you look in the comments or in the description, the info section of the video tonight, we just released a new website and blog. Very simple to start with. We're going to be slowly building it out. It's a Google Sites website. It is a blogger blog. I'm adding some of my more detailed World Cup thoughts there. And as far as the website, it's just kind of the one-stop shop for all things SOP. Links to our social media, to our merchandise store where you can get some SOP swag, like these cool shirts, like the cool tumbler that you always see Mike carrying around in all of our videos, as well as some sponsor information as well. So make sure you go check those out, bookmark those, drive up some ad metrics there so we can start building that out even more. Now, MLS offseason moves. Here we go. I said we were going to be Eastern Conference heavy, so we'll try and get some more Western Conference news for our next episode. But to start off, DC United, and Connor, you're going to love this one, DC United signed 34-year-old Pedro Santos from free agency, most recently with the Columbus Crew. And Connor, Crew fans, would you say he's a bit of a Crew legend? He's got 155 regular season appearances, 23 goals, 34 assists, 11 playoff appearances, including 2 goals. Pedro Santos is, I think he is right there, borderline Crew legend status. He came in as a midfielder, as a winger, but lately he's been playing defense, wing back for the Crew. I think that was mostly out of need for Columbus based on the roster and because Caleb Porter loved throwing numbers forward, overloading plays on the wing, and Pedro Santos was able to fit into that. But given his age and just the sheer number of minutes that he has logged, I don't think wingback is the best position for him. But we'll see what he does under Wayne Rooney. Now, I don't know, is he going to be a bench player? I think at this point, if DC United wants to actually start contending in MLS, a guy like Pedro Santos is a spot starter, but mainly coming off the bench, a guy who can help set the culture and provide some great experience to younger players, but also non-MLS transfers that are going to come into the league. You can provide a lot of guidance for them, especially if you're trying to get some South American players to come in. And again, considering Rooney wants to be more active and pressing, I don't think Santos is going to be an everyday starter for them. But a solid MLS player, no doubt about it, and definitely a good signing for a team that's looking to try to reset things. Now, we're going to jump real quick out to the Western Conference, and then we'll get back to the Eastern Conference moves. Colorado Rapids have recalled Cole Bassett from his loan from Fortuna Sittard in the Eredivisie. He's only 21 years old, so his best seasons are still in front of him. But the Rapids need help, and it looks more and more like last season's top of the Western Conference finish was a fluke. Now, then again, it took the last day results to go their way, but also they transferred a whole chunk of their best players. They made some of that money, and we're just trying to see how they could do this year before they spent it. So can I fault them too much for that? No, but it's definitely not. We have the greatest coach in the league, and we've got all these great young players we can plug in and pick up where we left off. Definitely not that level like a lot of people thought. So my guess with the reason Cole Bassett's coming home is not only do they need help in Colorado for the Rapids, but he just wasn't getting the playing time and performance in order to get him to that next big transfer level. He only had 19 appearances with 1 goal and 1 assist. And supposedly the Eredivisie is a league where you can score goals if you're looking for them. So either there was no sell-on clause or purchase clause that was triggered, or the fact that he didn't play enough to merit the kind of sale that Colorado is looking for. So bring him back, get him back home, get him where he's most comfortable, have him excel in the MLS for another year, and then, hey, try the market again and see what you can get for Cole Bassett. But I know for Rapids fans, they are going to love having a player of his caliber and experience on their roster day in and day out. Now, flipping back over to the East, FC Cincinnati coming off their best season in club history, which after 3 wooden spoons doesn't seem so surprising, but it was a very, very good season with a playoff win. They signed Ecuador midfielder Marco Angulo. First of all, good for Cincinnati for grabbing an Ecuador international before they did damage at the World Cup, and all those prices would go right on up. He's not playing in the World Cup, I don't believe, but obviously that good performance by the national team is going to drive their prices up. It was a $3 million transfer fee, so, nothing to turn your nose up at, and he'll be considered U22 signing. He's been described as a box-to-box midfielder, should fit in really well with the core of that team, be able to play nicely with Lucho Acosta and get some balls into Vasquez up top. They are really trying to complement that core of players and bring some solid pieces around them. Also, real quick, I think Angulo is immediately in the discussion for top 10 haircuts in MLS. The dude's got some great volume going on, and that's all I'll say. Feel free to look him up. Also, FC Cincinnati is in talks for defender Matt Hedges, formerly of Dallas, currently a free agent. 32-year-old, played okay for Dallas this year, considering where they finished in the standings. But is he going to be the defender on a trophy-winning Cincinnati team? That you're going to have to sell me on. All right, let's take a few comments before we get into the last couple teams we're going to look at. A new Wiseman said, if only Leeds United States isn't a relegation side, Aronson and Adams are basically the Dudley Boys from WWE. That's fantastic. I'm thinking even like Bash Brothers from Mighty Ducks. But great comment there. And hey, we even got Mike jumping in the chat. Brother, good to have you with us. He says, what's up, y'all? Great day of soccer, but still disappointed with the men's national team result. Yeah, and you know what? I think if the script was flipped, if Wales scored and the U.S. clawed back and showed that grit, and that would be the headline, right? Like, oh, look at how tough they fought to come back and get the point. We're going to do that. Just because we gave up an 80th minute penalty kick to drop 2 points, I think that's what makes it doubly disappointing. But to look at some of the final transfer talk, Atlanta is trying to sign Derrick Etienne Jr., so another Columbus guy, being sent on the road or not being re-signed. So reading between the lines here, Columbus definitely in rebuild mode. Get rid of the coach, get rid of 2 solid pieces for them. And Etienne Jr. to Atlanta, I think makes sense. I've always liked Derrick Etienne Jr. since he even was back in the Red Bulls. The guy proved he's going to be an MLS lifer if he wants to be. He is solid. He is smart. He even came up big with a couple goals, I think, in the postseason for Columbus over the last couple seasons. So the man has a little bit of that, what do you want to call it, big moment DNA in him, right? He plays for Haiti internationally. So even if he is not getting a lot of minutes or any sort of development with his club team, the guy's doing it on the international level for Haiti. So and Haiti in the Caribbean is going to be getting a lot more international games with Nations League and Caribbean League and qualifying and all that sort of thing. So Etienne's going to get a lot of minutes to develop, and he's only 26 years old. So he's in his prime. This is a solid pickup for Atlanta if they get the deal done. And I think he's going to complement Thiago Almada very, very well. Again, assuming Atlanta gets the deal done. Now, the last bit of MLS news I want to talk about comes out of the blue side of the Hudson River here. NYCFC's got a lot of things going on. First of all, they exercised their option on Maxi Morales, so he will be back in 2023. The 36-year-old, gosh, makes me just wonder why I can't get on a treadmill for a little bit or on an exercise bike, man. This guy's doing it at the highest levels at age 36, and here I am just turned 38. Like, when's my turkey for Thanksgiving going to be ready? How many plates am I going to eat? I got to rethink some of my fitness priorities, folks. Also, what NYCFC is doing, they signed Tavon Gray through 2025. Young player. And what really the benefit of a new 2-year deal is, not only do they have control over the player and can develop him and keep him in New York City and keep him happy and potentially get that long-term deal with him, but also that's enough control where if he has another good start to the season, he's perfect to be sold to a club in Europe for big money because they'll have a year and a half of him and then maybe get them the next sell-on big fee for a guy like Tavon Gray. So good business by New York City with that signing. Also, if you hadn't heard already, Nick Cushing is no longer the interim manager. He has been promoted to full manager. So good job to Cushing for that. Also, and the biggest news probably, Mike, I know you love talking about this, New York City signed a stadium deal in Queens, and it doesn't look like just a new stadium. It looks like they are building an entire soccer neighborhood, housing, entertainment, hotel, obviously the soccer specific stadium, and just tons of development in the area. So, I mean, New York City has said they've already gotten, New York City FC has said they've already gotten like $1 billion or so in investments going into this project. So hopefully they do it right. I'm sure they will, especially with all of MLS's input on it. And it's in New York. I've got a little bit of faith that New York knows how to do this kind of thing. Couple other quick things for NYCFC. They traded $325,000 in GAM and a third-round draft pick for 2 international roster spots from Nashville. So Nashville getting some money together, and that kind of falls in line with the rumor that they are looking to sign Thomas Henry out of Hellas Verona in Serie A. This is a 28-year-old French striker. Earlier in his career, he bounced around in the lower divisions in France and Belgium and had a really good scoring rate. He was scoring about every other game in the French and Belgian second divisions. Got picked up by Venezia in Serie A a couple seasons back. They get relegated, and he ends up going to Hellas Verona. And now, hopefully, New York City can get that deal done with a little bit of this extra GAM and those roster spots that they've accumulated. The last thing, I'm speculating here, Sean Johnson, their goalkeeper, their star player, is out of contract. He's a free agent. And they only recently re-signed goalkeeper Cody Mazzell. So no word on Sean Johnson, but Cody Mazzell gets his contract extended. Now, is he going to be the starter in place of Johnson? I don't know. That is the speculation here. And if anyone from New York City knows anything about it, shoot us a message at SOP Soccer on Twitter or email us sonsofapitchsoccer@gmail.com and let us know. So most recently, he was on loan to New Mexico United. He's played most of his career in USL. He had a brief stint in Iceland back in 2015-16. And signed with NYCFC in 2021 and then went back on loan to New Mexico. He's got a handful of caps with the U.S. Youth National Team, so maybe this is the heir to Sean Johnson at 31 years old, or maybe they get a new deal for Sean Johnson done. Hopefully, Sean Johnson at least gets through the World Cup before he gets distracted with any sort of contract talk. All right. So with that, SOPs, friends, listeners, viewers, I am going to go ahead and wrap this episode. It's been a long day with all the World Cup games. We got to get up at 4 o'clock for that Argentina game. My wife's looking at me like, are you crazy? Are you insane? And I said, you know what? It might be the World Cup fever. It might be keeping me up. So please, thank you for everyone who supported us for all of our live streams today. Make sure you continue to like, share, and subscribe. Make sure you support our show. We're over on goals.tv, GOLZ.tv. Go find us over there. Click on our profile in the catalog. Look up some of our videos there. Help us continue to get exposure on their website as well. But also super chats, super thanks. Any donations are very much appreciated as it helps keep us going and helps us kind of get some of that software and data packages and things for graphics, designs, for the live kind of play-by-play stuff that we put on in the chats. We appreciate it very much. And don't forget the new website and the new blog Links are in the comment section below. So with that, friends, I'm going to take my last sip of water here. And we're going to call it on day 2 of the World Cup. We will see you next week with another one of our weekly chats. Enjoy the matches, go USMNT, and enjoy all the world's game, everyone. Thank you.